Hi everyone, I'm Eugenia and I'm a PhD candidate from Trinity College, Dublin. And today I'm going to present my job market paper titled Accepting the Unacceptable, Does Intimate Partner Violence Shape the Tolerance of Violence? Let me start by saying that intimate partner violence is a global issue, and shockingly, the tolerance towards intimate partner violence is widespread. Globally, 34% of women find wife beating acceptable under certain situations, for instance, if they neglect their children or if they go out without their husband's permission. However, where this tolerance comes from is not really clear. Previous research in economics has shown that there is a positive correlation between the experience of violence and its tolerance from the victim's perspective. However, we do not know whether there is a causal link or not. And here's where my key contribution is. Namely, I want to understand whether the experience of intimate partner violence can shape victims' tolerance towards it. And in my job market paper, I intend to answer two research questions. First, whether the tolerance of violence might represent a coping mechanism for victims and the survivors of intimate partner violence. And second, whether the relationship between intimate partner violence and its tolerance might vary depending on the length of exposure to violence. First, I show theoretically that in settings where victims do not have a lot of outside options or have limited outside options, namely divorce is very rare, then it becomes optimal for victims to increase their tolerance towards violence as a way to cope with it, as a way to decrease the disutility they receive from violence. I then test this hypothesis empirically in the setting of India, that is characterized by a high prevalence of violence, high tolerance of it, and also where divorce is extremely rare. And I leverage the variation generated by different alcohol regulation policies within Indian states. And I'm going to exploit both the across and within variation generated by the minimum legal drinking ages in India using two empirical strategies. First, a regression discontinuity design, and second, an event study approach to estimate the causal effect of intimate partner violence on victims' tolerance towards it in the short and in the long term. My key findings suggest that in the short term, higher prevalence of violence does not lead to any change in victims' or survivors' tolerance towards it, but what matters is the length of exposure in the long term. So the longer victims are exposed to violence, the more likely they are to justify violence and normalize it if they do not have an outside option, as in the context that I'm studying.